It has been a little bit, and that's mostly because news is pretty weak, or uh, it's been like enough stories for maybe like three that I think are interesting each week, and so we kind of have stacked a bunch. But I've only picked out the ones I'm interested in. Some of these are continuation of stuff that we talked about a long time ago, but a lot of these are kind of interesting. So let's start with news that I think is cool for any Gears of War fan. Gears of War is officially coming to PlayStation 5 in August. So if you don't know, E-Day is right around the corner. Well, kind of. But Gears of War Reloaded was announced, which is a modernized version of the original Gears of War game, featuring all the improvements from Gears of War Ultimate Edition plus modern performance boosts. This will be the third, count them, third, kind of remaster of the original game. That's not to mention that the original technically has two different versions, the Xbox 360 version and the Windows Live, meaning that this is one of the most changed games to come out in recent time. It even beats Mass Effect, which is a wild thing, but it's uh, it's definitely feeling like they're kind of trying to set up for maybe a trilogy, uh, which like like setting up for a new trilogy, but setting up for the remaster of the trilogy because E Day is right around the corner, and I don't know. It's definitely interesting. The reason I bring this up because I'm a huge Gears fan. I do think a remaster is kind of not necessary for or modernization, whatever you want to call it, for Gears of War One is definitely not needed. But ignoring that, we have other terrible news, in my opinion. Tripwire announces the July 24th global launch date for Killing Floor 3. As somebody who has played the little beta they had, um, I don't really think it's that solid. I don't think it's that solid of a game. I was really hoping that this would kind of fade out and maybe be dropped, but I understand, money, blah, blah, blah. Uh, but yeah, it's really sad. I, that's all I really got for this. I'm a huge Killing Floor fan, so don't get me wrong, like it's not gonna be a bad experience. I just feel like it's such a downturn from Killing Floor 2 and even the original Killing Floor that I feel very heartbroken is a bit of a strong word, but at the end of the day, it's the way it is. Uh, but yeah, that's the new launch date. Just a nice little update for you guys. And talking about older stuff too, we have the original Devil May Cry director wants to remake the first game. So, uh, if you don't know, Devil May Cry was originally conceived as Resident Evil 4, which is really, really insane because they don't play anything similarly. But the Devil May Cry remake wouldn't use the current game design, which is a really interesting like idea. Was asked the question during a type of interview if you could work on a remake of Devil May Cry. Do you have any ideas? A remake like that? Well, I would like to do that. If we jump ahead a bit, he adds, I feel like it's game design from 24 years ago, and I don't have any desire to fully remake it with the current technology and game design ideas. And so maybe more of a blend to like pass the limitations without, handicapping himself with uh, trying to modernize something so different because yeah, as stated, 24 years is a long, long time, especially in video games. Like you look at a lot of the games that came out back then, Shadow of Colossus would not exist as it is because it's just a completely different like way of developing games. And a lot of these games also laid the foundation for how these games were made, how newer games are being made. And so it would be interesting to see. He also mentioned Beautiful Joe as a possible like remake territory, but I would love to see Devil May Cry 1 receive a remake. Specifically because it opens the door for 2 and potentially 3, I guess, but specifically 2 because I feel like 2 is the one that I feel the least about. And I feel like for Devil May Cry, which is one of the better series that if you haven't tried, I recommend wholeheartedly. It's one of the better series that you should probably check out if you've ever like had an interest because it's really good and having a remake of 1 and 2 would push more people to play game series because Devil May Cry 4 and 5, along with even the little reboot they did, are really good games. The reboot's a little less, but it's still really, really good. I love them. They're great action. Check them out. But a remake on the horizon for one could be interesting, which goes into Warner Brothers. We've talked about Warner Brothers quite a bit. Their revenue for their games drops 48% in the first quarter of 2025. Uh, yeah, that's just because they don't know how to make good games. They've also dropped the the very specific like companies that could possibly make a good game that would just increase that. Um, Total revenues went down 16% to 2.3 billion compared to the same period last year. Revenue for Warner Brothers overall during quarter one totaled 9 billion, a 9% decrease year on year. Um, yeah, there's a restructuring program in quotes, which saw the closure of Monolith Productions. We've talked about that. Player First Games and Warner Bros. San Diego. And so we'll see if they can recoup some of the cost of having specifically Monolith Productions be shut down. Because the other two, well, don't get me wrong, it still hurts any development studio. But as we talked about, Warner Brothers San Diego doesn't seem to have been working on anything. So maybe they were just like an outset company that, or outset development studio that kind of helped in on projects. But uh, we are focusing on, or we're focusing our games business around four tentpole franchises that have each generated over 1 billion in consumer sales in the past years. Harry Potter, which makes sense. Game of Thrones, which I don't think makes sense, and I'll get to that. Mortal Kombat and DC, particular top tier characters like Batman, which again, this is kind of the biggest problem here, is while Harry Potter, I think, is the one that makes the most sense here, and Mortal Kombat is Mortal Kombat. And I could definitely see that. I feel like their DC offerings have been suffering a bit from not being good. And Game of Thrones, I feel like, is very quickly forgotten as time goes on and might not be the solid moneymaker you would potentially really want. Um, but Hogwarts Legacy has proven that Harry Potter will get them somewhere, uh, and that fan base is really toxically focused on the franchise. So, hey, when it comes down to it, they might still succeed. I'm not guessing they're going to succeed that much, though. I don't think they can bring this back, especially with video game sales on the downturn. Um, we have the great Randy Pitchford, which, if you can't tell the sarcasm there, says real fans will pay $80 for Borderlands 4, and people are not happy. So basically, Randy Pitchford, if you don't know, is a complete dumbass that happens to be a part of Gearbox, or what was once Gearbox has morphed into whatever it's called now. And basically, a fan replied to one of Pitchford's posts saying Borderlands 4 better not be 80. Responded by saying that the price wasn't up to him, but he also shared his opinion on high game prices, said that true fans would still find a way to afford the game. Yeah, which is my local game store had Starflight, sorry, for Sega Genesis for $80 in 1991 when I was out of high school working minimum wage at an ice cream parlor in Bismo Beach, and I found a way to make it happen. That's really like it. Yeah, and someone says, "Dude, you must be out of touch with today's economy. It's is over 4 times more difficult for a single person to make a living with the current cost of the living," which is like, of course, a lot of embellishments going to go on and blah blah blah. People have different stuff going on, but when it comes to video games, like even the great Nintendo is still receiving backlash from this, and they'll continue to see backlash until the Switch 2 does a full couple months and we see how much it hurts their sales. Hopefully, if you're a video game fan, it does actually hurt their sales and they kind of backtrack a little bit on that. Microsoft also went with their little thing of raising prices, which again, hopefully it hurts their sales and they backtrack a bit. But this is a notion I hope stops. And I get the idea is that video games cost more to make and inflation and blah blah blah. $60 is not going to cut it anymore. I can totally get behind that messaging if any of the games that come out are actually worth more than $60. None of them have been really worth it where it feels fantastic. Uh, there's always like a caveat. There's always like a spot of it that makes it feel like I've been ripped off. which I understand is maybe a more personal bias, but at the same time, I feel like this is kind of shared with a lot of other people in that buy video games, that buy new stuff. So we'll see how the community eventually rallies around what they believe in. But ultimately, my belief is that as long as enough people do not buy this stuff, it shouldn't succeed. And just don't get pressured into it. There's a bunch of other ways of enjoying video games right now. Um, just just understand there's a lot of ways to enjoy it. You don't have to pay $80. Just don't. But ignoring that, we have another kind of situation. Avowed director has left Obsidian after nearly 12 years. Uh, the director, Obsidian Entertainment's Avowed, has left the Xbox studio only a few months after the game's release. Now, this article is a very bad showcase. I tried to find the other article, but I believe she got offered for a Netflix studio. Yeah, Netflix's Night School studio, which, depending on money, makes sense. They One of the things is like it could also be like a very stale environment. I really don't like that video game studios aren't like received like this, but it's a very creative, like, just outlet, right? It's a creative focused thing, is making these stories and these worlds and all this mesh together in a very fun, hopefully, experience. And I feel like you can get creatively burned out on, like, in certain studios if they just, if it's the same thing overall. And I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing. A lot of people are like, hey, this is a terrible thing. I mean, it's probably because Avowed failed. I just see this as a difference. And yeah, this is, a lot of people would be like, well, you're just trying to, like, make this a better situation for Avowed. And it's like, I don't really care. I just see it as more, why is this news a lot of the time? And this is going to happen a lot as we go forward into 2025 and into the latter half. I feel like we're going to see a lot of change ups because, remember, decade long careers can get very tiring at such a creative process. And hopefully, she does incredible at the new studio, and we can see some good games out of that studio. It's I'm always hopeful for great games to come out of any studio. I don't expect it a lot of the time out of some of the ones that burned me before or that just aren't in it for the actual making of the game, but I'm always hopeful. So we'll see what happens there, and I wish her luck. Next, we go into Microsoft raises the prices. I've already mentioned this. Uh, Xbox confirmed to hit $80 this holiday. This is kind of expected. A lot of this is tariff responses. Um, yeah, so we understand that these changes are challenging and that they were made with careful consideration given market conditions and the rising cost of development. Looking ahead, we continue to focus on offering more ways to play more games across any screen and ensuring value of Xbox players. Um, yeah, I really don't. As I said, $80 for a game is really stupid. I kind of get the idea of raising a bunch of stuff, mostly due to tariffs. I don't, but at the same time, I still feel is it's a little too annoying. Uh, because you look at something like the Xbox Series X, $599 is up to from $499. That that console's been out for 5 years. It's about to hit 5 years old. I'm sorry, that's not how that works with technology. That's just not how it works. I get it. Maybe certain things become harder. Um, it should have not been a 499 console anyway. So this is feeling very scam, uh, and I really don't enjoy it. Just in general, a lot of the stuff I don't understand. If you are buying a console at this point and you're paying this price, you're stupid. You waited too long, and that's fine. It's okay. Don't feel bad. I mean, you make your own choices, but at the end of the day, this is really really dumb. This one of the dumbest things in the world is this type of raise prices for Xbox or Sony in any regard for their Series X or their PlayStation 5. These are consoles that have been out for 5 years, 4.5 if we want to be specific. It should be lower, not higher. And so I feel very negative on this topic. Um, and that's even ignoring the $80 price tag for video games, which I've already talked about in great detail. I think it's really stupid. Uh, And one of the things that's mentioned is AAA game prices jumping from 60 to 70 in just the last 5 years. I feel it needs an asterisk around it because 60 to 70 was only happening for the first 2 to 3 years by like EA and a few companies. Like it wasn't even the standard for like Nintendo. It wasn't even the standard for Xbox. You look at something like it just wasn't the standard. It's only the past 2 years where I felt like the $70 mark was the standard. So I feel like that needs a little asterisk, and I feel that it's a lot faster than it should be. And it's up to, at this point, the big business makers at video game companies to manage costs better than to go after the consumers a lot more with the price tag. And yeah, it's just personally, I feel it's very very negative leaning to the consumer, which I'm always for the consumer in this case, mostly because the video game industry is kind of a dick. And then next on this, I know this happened like May 2nd, but I wanted to talk about it and just finally got around the time. Um, Specifically, in a year and 5 days, Grand Theft Auto 6 will now release. It's been delayed, which was kind of expected if you knew the writing on the wall. And hopefully, this kind of changes the community outlook to maybe not buy the game because I don't think paying any more than necessary should be a thing for any video game. I do want to point out that this is more than likely going to be a good experience. Like I hate to be this guy. Like don't get me wrong, Grand Theft Auto 6 is supposed to be probably going to be a great game. If you have no interest in the game, you have no interest in open world or whatever storytelling they're going to go with. If you have no interest in that, don't buy the game. Do not inflate the numbers because it's the cool hip thing, for lack of a better term. That is what a lot of people are uh are kind of like into video games that release. The fear of missing out. And they feel that and they feel that and they buy the game and they play it for 6 hours and then they don't touch the game ever again. Or they touch the game like 2 years later. Is it really worth paying $100 for a game you're gonna play 6 hours of, maybe, and then 2 years later you finally go through the entire thing for 20 hours when you could just wait the 2 years, pay $50 maybe, which is like, half the cost, and then you're much more interested because there's more content. I get it. Not a lot of people see that. They want the immediate, oh, I shoot me up with this new game. Just wait. Just honestly wait. Give it a shot. Um, when you get the chance, and don't feed into this if you have no intention of finishing the game in a near launch window. That's the end of it. Just please, just we need to stop as consumers in the video game industry from giving money to games that, one, are in early access all the time, two, are coming out that we don't have any intention to play. It's something that I've been trying to improve on, and it's some that everywhere, every single person needs to try and improve on. But that's it. That's the end of the little news cycle. I went through a bunch really fast because it kind of continues on with a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, that's the video game news for right now. In the background will probably be also kind of a news story. Xbox has released 50 old classic games, kind of brought to a new modern thing. And I think I'll put that in the background and show it. It's Retro Classics. It's on the Game Pass. On the Game Pass. I don't know why I said that. But there's a bunch of games on it from Activision, like Commando, Grand Prix, Kaboom. And we'll be playing a few of those in the background, hopefully. And we'll see what we can do. But that'll be in the background. Have a good one. And hopefully, we won't be gone for this long waiting for good news. And hopefully, the bad news stays away.